A Crippled Lamb by Max Lucado and with Jenna, Andrea, and Sarah Lucid. Dear friend, return to a familiar story with like revisiting an old friend. Inviting, comfortable. If you're renewing your acquaintance with the Crippled Lamb, we hope you enjoy that way. If you're rediscovering an old friend with a new story, we pray if you message us with a blessed life. We're grateful to God for placing this story on your heart so we could share with you. The message is so simple, but precisely remember God's love extends to all. He has a special place for you and His children. May you always remember how much He loves you. Warmly, Max Lucado. Once upon a time in a sunny valley, there lived a little lamb named Joshua. He was a white and black spots, black feet, and sad eyes. Joshua felt sad when he saw the lambs and snow where the wolves he spots. He felt sad when he saw other sheep in their moms, dads, because he didn't have a mom or dad. But he felt saddest when he saw the other lambs running and jumping because he couldn't. Josh had been born with one leg, and that didn't look right. He was crippled. He always limped when he walked. That's why he always watched while the other lambs ran and played. Josh felt sad and alone, except with Abigail was around. Abigail was Josh's best friend. She didn't look like a friend for a lamb, but she was an old cow. She was born white blotches that looked like rain puddles on the path. Her belly was as round and as a barrel, and her voice was kind and friendly. Some of Josh's free hours were spent with Abigail. They loved to pretend they were on adventures in distant lands, just like listen to Abigail tell stories about the stars. They would spend hours on the hill looking into the valley. They were good friends, but even with a friend like Abigail, Josh still got sad. It made him sad, so the only lambs could run, not jump and play in the grass. That's then Abigail would run, turn, and say, "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God's special place to those who felt left out." Josh wanted to believe her, but it was hard. Some of the days he just felt alone. He really felt alone the day that shepherd decided to take the lambs to the next valley where they grew grass. The sheep had been in the valley so long the ground was nearly bare. All the sheep were excited, and the shepherd told them they were going to a new meadow. As they prepared to leave, Josh hobbled over to take the place at the edge of the group, but the others stared, laughed at him. "You're too slow. You're going all the way to the next valley. Go back, slowpoke. You'll never get there waiting for you. Go back, Joshua." That's when Joshua looked up and saw the shepherd standing in front of him. "They're all right, my little Joshua. You better go back, and this trip is too long for you. Go and spend the night in the stable." Joshua looked at the man for a long time, then he turned slowly and began limping away. When Josh got to the top of the hill, he looked down and saw all the sheep headed toward the green grass. Never before had he felt so out. A big tear ripped out his eye, rolling down his nose, and he fell on the rock. Just then he heard Abigail behind him, and Abigail said what she could when Joshua felt sad. "Don't be sad, little Joshua. God had a special place for those who left out." Slowly the two friends turned and walked into the stable together. By the time they got to the little barn, the sun settled like a big orange ball. Josh and Abigail went inside and began to eat some hay out of the feed box. They were very hungry, and they said it tasted good. For a little while, Josh got up and behind him, "Go to sleep, little friend." Abigail, when finished eating, "You're up hard today." Josh was tired, so he lay down in the corner on some straw and closed his eyes. He felt Abigail live beside him. He was glad to have Abigail as a friend. So Josh was asleep. At first he felt soundly, curled up against Abigail's back, and he dreamed. He dreamed of running, jumping, and other sheep. He dreamed along with Abigail through the valley. He dreamed of being in a place where they never felt left out. Suddenly a strange noise woke him up. "Abigail, wake up, I'm scared." Abigail lifted the big head and took around and started with a small hanger on the wall. "Somebody is in here," Josh whispered. They looked across the dimly lit stable. There, lying on the fresh with a feed box, was a baby. A young woman was resting on a big pile of hay beside the feed box. Joshua looked at Abigail, thinking he and his friend could tell him what was going on, but Abigail was just as surprised as Josh. Josh looked again at the woman and the child, then limped across the stable. He stopped next to the mother and looked at the baby's face. The baby was crying. She was cold. Women picked up the baby and put him in the next to her. Josh looked around the stable for something the baby warmed. Usually there was a blanket, but not tonight. The shepherds had taken them on their trip across the valley. When Josh remembered his own soft, warm stool, timidly he walked over and crumpled across the baby. "Thank you, little lamb," the baby's mother said softly. Soon the little child stepped clear back into sleep. At that time, the man entered the stable carrying some rags. "I'm sorry, Mary. This is all covered I find." "It's okay," he answered. "The little lamb was a new king born, and I wondered who might be. His name is Jesus." Mary spoke, and he was new to his question. "God's son. He came from heaven to teach us about God." Then there was another noise on the door. It was the shepherds. One who left Josh behind his eyes, and they were excited. He saw bright light heads of angels. They began, and they saw Judge next to the baby. "Joshua, did you know who the baby is?" "He does now." It was a young mother who was speaking. So she looked at Josh and smiled. "God has heard your prayers, little lamb. The little baby is the answer." Josh looked down at the baby. Somehow he knew he was a special child. This was a very special moment. He also understood why he had been born with a crippled leg. Had he been with the other sheep, he would have been in the valley. But since he was different, he was in the stable among the first to welcome Jesus in the world. He turned around, walked around to Abigail, and took his place beside his friend. "You were right," he told her. "God has set a special place for me."